Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah wa syukurillah wa la hawla wa la quwata illa billah. First of all, thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given us mercies and blessing today. So, Rifki and friends here could attend on this couple of weeks of this course in the best of health and iman. Okay, dear sisters and brothers, I will take maybe around 45 minutes since now to recall back what you have already read and understood before through my class. So, by the way, we have been a 7 meeting of this class, but I've tried to squeeze all of the meeting into since 5, 6, 7 into single meeting because I saw that the composition of the slide is quite related and easy to be understood. And now, maybe I will just give you a snapshot about what we theoretically and also give you some calculations, empirical calculations, so we can measure to what extent the understanding of you in learning about banking and finance. Okay, I'm start with this one, Rifki and friends. The evolution of the risk management and regulation in banking. Yeah, so basically is if you learn about banking sectors. So if we learn about banking sectors, basically we have to understand about the capital, liquidity, and competitions. So these three items are part and parcel with the banking financial management because they have to be in parallel because of the in current practices of the banking, so that the competition and banking here seems to be look like a dilemma. So if the banking sector tries to compete excessively so that the affordability will be accessed, but on the other hand, if the banking sectors try to uh, reduce the competition level, so it means that the 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 prudential banking sectors is taking place. So therefore, if you talk about competition and banking, we have to look for in which the position whereby the competition and the shortness of the banking could be maintained in parallel. Yeah. So we have to look for the optimal positions. And therefore, in relation with the dilemma between competitions and banking, so some international institutions such as central banks, yeah, and also banking for uh, international settlement (BIS), yeah, they try to develop supervisory and regulations. Yeah. So supervisory here in the context of banking sectors, we may call as the microprudential regulations. So the microprudential regulation tries to focus on the internal banking sectors, such as the NPL, CAR, yeah, BOPO. So those indicators are supervised by the internal banking. And also in context of the banking as well, the regulation also view the macro level. Yeah, in this case, we focus on the macro prudential regulations. This macro prudential tries to ensure that the financial system where the banking lies in also stable. So the supervision and regulation will cover both aspects, micro and macro. And this will include and invite so many regulators, yeah, such as central banks, yeah, uh, Financial Services Authority, yeah, and also LPS, yeah, Ministry of Finance. All these institutions are taking care of these supervisory regulations. Okay, this is the first part that I just want to share with you, and we move to the second part of the. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to interrupt myself. We move to the next one here. Hopefully you can see. Okay, So here is the risk framework and balance sheet structures in the banking sector, Islamic banking. So you see, sisters and brothers, once we have discussed the prudential regulations, we discuss about micro and macro prudential regulations. So basically, those regulations will focus on how the banking sectors is able to manage the risk. Yeah. So to what extent they able to manage the risk actually. So the risk management becomes an important sectors, become the importance points on this in this context, so that if you oh sorry okay here. So the risk frameworks and balance sheet structures must be in place, because if you understand this risk framework and balance sheet structures, so the banking could be able to manage the potential risk that will be appear during the operations. Yeah. And on this context, so the risk occurs in Islamic bank due to the complex operations. Yeah. So we cannot avoid the risk. Once again, I repeat, we cannot avoid the risk because the banking is running, because the banking operation is running. Whatever institution that running the business, they will face the risk. On this context, the financial risk will take place. And risk management here is needed to reduce and prevent. So I refer here reduce and prevent. Reduce means that if the risk has been taking place, so the financial institution hopefully able to reduce the risk. The risk here means the impact. The impact. Or prevents. Prevents mean before the risk appears or build up, so the financial institutions will take some strategic plans so that the risk will not be taking place. The unprecedented risk due to Islamic banking operations. So here we includes three risk processes. The risk identifications. So you need to understand what is the financial risk and non-financial risk. Yeah, you look through the financial ratio that you have learned last week. And the second one, risk targets. Yeah, tolerable or accepted risk levels. Yeah, so maybe if you join my presentation last week in OJK, so basically I'm trying to develop the risk target. Yeah, so the risk target here will give you the tolerable or accepted levels or thresholds. So as long as the threshold still maintained, so the risk target still there. Yeah, and here we use the stress testing techniques. Yeah, stress testing techniques. And once you have already understood the target, so you move to the risk evaluations. So the risk evaluation here will cover the strategies for sustainability. It means that once you have already developed the threshold, for example, the threshold is between 1 until 2%. So what is the strategies then from your banking point of view so that this 1 until 2% is maintained or sustainable? So therefore, you have to invite and use the regulations, either micro and macro prudentials. So this macro and macro prudential in practical will be for very important in order to ensure that this level of acceptance in terms of the risk is maintained either in the banking sectors or in the financial system. And the second one, the third one, understanding risk characteristic. Yeah, so you have to also cover what is the contractual rule, trustee partnership or principles. Yeah, so in this context, you have to understand the contracts. What the contracts, whether the sale contracts or partnership contract or services contracts, and fund characteristic. So what the fund here initiated from, whether liability side or asset side. Liability sides mean funding sources. Yeah, from the left-hand side, a relationship between the depositors and the bank and the banks, and also asset side, meaning and between the banks and the the entrepreneurships, the entrepreneurs. Yeah. And here is the models for looking at the Islamic banking operations. in terms of the balance sheet. Yeah. So the first one, the concept of pooling of funds. Yeah. I guess if you join the guest lecture yesterday with the Bank Syariah Indonesia, um, actually the banking implementing the pooling of fund. In the pooling of fund here, you see that the giro, tabungan, deposito, pinjaman, and others, regardless the duration of the fund, you see that giro tabungan seems to be short terms, deposito could be long term, but they are pulled together into a single post. Yeah, and through this single post, they are distributed into several financing schemes. Yeah, they have the primary reserve, yeah, secondary reserve, financing, investment, and fixed asset. So what happens if you understand this one? Short-term, long-term here do not match with the financing durations. So what happens, for example, you put your money in the tabungan, for example, yeah, and once you put the money in tabungan, the bank will use your money and use the money for investing in maybe in the route, yeah, highway, for example, yeah, highway, and this investment maybe will take more than 1-2 years. But in your case, you withdraw your money immediately, maybe by tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So very short. So what happened then? Short-term fund match with the long-term financing. So in this case, in the context of balance sheet, the bank will face mismatch liquidity. Mismatch. The money is being used, but you withdraw the money. So this happens because the bank implementing pooling of fund concept, regardless the duration of the maturity of the source of fund. And the second one is the allocation of fund here. So in the context of allocation of fund, so you have so many sources, and these sources are channeled into several financing schemes. Yeah, here, so many complicated items here. So this also very reluctant, very close to the mismatch liquidity, mismatch balance sheet. Short term is not matched with the short term financing. Long term is not matched with the long term financing. So bank seems to be very vulnerable. Yeah, once the depositors withdraw the money, once in other side the bank still use your money for investment purposes. And the next one is the conversion of funds. So here seems to be make sense, sisters and brothers. So the funds flows from the right hand side to the left hand side. If you see in detail from the previous two models, the fund flows from left hand side from depositors to the banks and entrepreneurs, left to right hand side, left to right. But in the third models, the fund flows from the right-hand side first, flow through the banks, and look for the fund from the left-hand side. So this seems to be very makes sense, and the bank will avoid and prevent the the possibility to have the mismatch. Yeah, because in here the short-term financing will be matched with the short financing. The medium financing will be channeled to the medium sources of funds. Yeah, and the long run here will be with the long term side. So here very much. Yeah, and bank will be more sound and strong. So the conclusion is the framework of risk management in Islamic banks are related to the contract and sources of fund characteristic. So you have to be able to link and match between the source and the channels, yeah, and the channels to the source. And the growth of risk through balance sheet performance must be reduced or prevented by prudential regulation. So once you have already found the target, the tolerable or accepted level of risk, so it must be preserved through the regulations. And the third one, quantitative and qualitative approaches are needed to capture the growth of risk in Islamic banks. So you have to further calculate, yeah, in numerical examples, yeah. so that your aspiration, your suggestion could be considered by the policymakers. Yeah. Okay, that's all for the second slide. Any comments, feedbacks, questions before I move to the second slide, the third slide, please? Rifki, you have any question, Rifki?
I don't have any question, sir.
Okay, so then I continue the next slide. If you have any questions, okay. So the next slide here about the development of risk-based supervision of banks. Yeah. So once you have understood before about the concept of risk, yeah, and also the risk management in related with the balance sheet, yeah. And now we move to the regulations in which this risk will be managed and prudently maintained by the banks. The first is the regulation must be based on the three pillars. Yeah, these three pillars are considered to be the Basel, yeah, the Basel regulations. So the first is minimum capital requirements. So in order to make the accepted risk of risk is maintained, the bank must maintain the capital requirements. Therefore, you oftenly heard about CAR, capital adequacy ratio. So this one is to develop and expand the standardized rules set by the international regulators. Yeah. And the second one is regulatory review and institution capital adequacy and internal assessment processes. So once the bank have the enough capital, adequate capital, so it must be another internal process of review. In other words, the bank should implement the microprudential regulations. Yeah. And the third one is effective use of the market disciplines. So market discipline here connected with the environments. The environment where the bank lie, actually, the bank live. So these three pillars become part and parcel in order to ensure the bank's health and condition. And here some reason on the excess capital. So if you feel that the bank has large profits, the two treatment will be chosen by the bank. The first is distribute all the profits to the stakeholders, or the second one is maintain a certain level of profit to be retained by the banks. So in case of the bank retain some amount of profit, so this profit retained must be included in their capitals. Yeah. So by taking more capital, it means that the bank has much more buffer. Yeah. Once the bank got shocks, yeah, from external environments. So the reason why the excess capital is to ensure bank is able to absorb the shocks. Yeah, the shocks either internal or external sources. So here is a reason also the same things so that the bank is able to always resilience. Yeah, in my words, resilience mean able to absorb the shock, in the same time still be able to share the financial services to the depositors and also the borrowers. Okay, that's all for the second one. Hopefully you are not dizzy and boring. So I move to the last slide here, little bit calculations about how to determine the profits, yeah, or the profit loss sharing in the context of banking sectors or Islamic banks. So I move to the next slide here. Okay, here I'm using Indonesian language. So on this context, we will look at how to calculate the profits in the context of Islamic banks. Yeah, I don't want to touch this one. I think you have understood what is the difference in the Islamic and banking and conventional operations. Yeah. I move to the next one directly to the slide distribusi, ya, profit loss sharing in Islamic banks. So here is the example of balance sheet, yeah, of Islamic banks, whereby this table shows the distribution of income in profit loss sharing in November 2007. And here is the sources of fund. We have wadi'ah, we have savings, yeah, and time deposits. And you have also the balance, average balance here, yeah, in the end of the months, yeah, here the balance, the black one here, and also distribution of profit sharing. So from 15 millions here, 15 million here, the profit sharing distribution around 1.0 million rupiahs, yeah, and also another one like this. And here's the nisbah. Nisbah means the proportions of the profit distribution between the banks and depositors, yeah. And also here the bonus and bagi hasil and profit loss sharing here, yeah. Here is 349, for example, in the mudarabah saving, 349, yeah, and the nisbah is 52, and will be go to customers, yeah, 48% of 349 here, so around 181 and others. And here we have indication equivalency rate of return. So how to calculate this one? I will inform you in the next slide. Here the same one, distribution of profit loss sharing in Islamic banks, the same things. Islamic principles, and I want to touch this one. You can read by your own. Okay, here is the calculation for revenue sharing and profit loss sharing. What is difference? So here is the to calculate the profit sharing. So the difference between the incomes and costs. Income and costs, you got the difference here. This is the profit and loss sharing, very easy. And also here is the who calculate the revenue sharing. The revenue sharing here, you have still the gross profit, yeah, not net profit, but gross profit. But the way how to calculate this one is similar with the previous one, income minus cost. We see about the correlation between the distribution of fund and profit loss sharing. Yeah. So here the example, if you distribute the fund 1 million, so the profit sharing that you share to the depositors 600 and 800 490, if 0 is 0. It means that the larger amount, the bigger amount of distributed fund, it will make the profit loss sharing also bigger, yeah, in the context of Islamic banks. The more, the bigger. The less, the lesser, yeah. And here the example, you have here the funding, yeah, 150, and you have the financing 150, and you have the income distributed 325, yeah, and you have the income that distributed, yeah. So income distributed and income that shared, yeah. So the same here, yeah, and between the himpun and salary here the same. It means that there's a balance, yeah. And but the second one here, the financing fund is more than the deposited funds. So in this case, the bank implement excessive behavior. Yeah, the financing is more compared to the funding. And the third one here, the funding is less than the distributions, financing. It means that the bank seems to be prudence. Yeah, prudence. So these three conditions take place in the Islamic banks. And the next one is how to calculate the profit loss sharing now in the Islamic banks. So here I inform you about the distribution table of profit loss sharing. So we have here the first rows about the type of deposits. And the second rows here is the average of the daily balance. Yeah. And the third one is the income, distributed income, the third rows. And the fourth and fifth rows here is the portion for the depositors and the portion for the banks here. Yeah. Okay, so we will calculate this one by one, and the information details you can look at on the next slides. Yeah, the details you can read by your own. What is the elaboration of the each particular tables and rows? And here we come to this is the same with the previous one. Yeah, and then now how to calculate then this one? So to calculate that, we have to understand about the wage. Yeah, the wage. And in order to calculate the wage, there are three concepts. Yeah, the first is included the GWM. Yeah, the minimum stationary reserve. And second one is excess reserve, and the third one floating rate. So here is the bobot is 1 minus GWM plus excess plus floating rate. So what is the implementations? The examples. Yeah, so it's the examples. Saldo bulanan from the third-party funds of the Islamic bank here, the saldo, the balance, yeah. And you have the GWM here, excess reserve, and blah, blah, blah here. And please calculate the wage of each and calculate the total fund of this one. Here is the calculations. You have the demand deposit, GIRO, yeah, GWM here. You have saving and deposit. You have here respectively. And the wage here is 1 minus 5 minus 3 minus 4. So you have 88%, and other one is the same formula. And this, the monthly balance, according to the questions, is 1.6, 2.4, and 4.8. So you times 88% times 1.8, so you get the weight balance, yeah, is 1.4. What does it mean? It means that if you have balance in particular months around 1.6 billion rupiah, for example, however, bank only could distribute the fund not 1.6 but 1.4. So the remaining around 200 million rupiah will be used by bank as the reserve. Yeah, as the reserve. So this 1.4 will be used for the financing purpose, and the remaining, the difference between 1.6 and 1.4 will be used for the reserve. Yeah, and another one is the same. And here is the calculation that from this one, very easy. And here another examples. Yeah, you can read by your own there. So in this second examples, the excess reserve and also the floating rate keep zero. Yeah, it means that the wage become higher. Yeah, if the wage higher, it means that the balance of the financing given to the deposit, given to the creditor, debitors or the entrepreneurs are higher compared to before. Yeah, here the fund readily distributed is higher if the wage become closer to the 100. Yeah. And the next one is without any wage. Yeah. So 100% here. So it means that all balance will be distributed to the debtors. Yeah, 100%. So now how to calculate the here, calculate the rate of returns here. Yeah, rate of returns. So here is the explanation, the details. Here are the examples. Yeah. So for example, you have a demand deposit 1 million. The bonus here, tabungan here, and also the deposit you can find here. The Nisbah has been available here. And you have also the GWM 5% as reserve here, floating rate 2%. And Mr. Ashar here is one of the customers of this PT Bank Syariah Pondok Ranji, and he has the balance of 250 million rupiah. So the question is, please make the table distribution for this Islamic banks. And the second one is, please make the distributions, table distributions, yeah. And the last one is how much the income of Mr. Ashar once he has the deposited fund for 2.250. Here the way how you calculate, sisters and brothers. Yeah. First of all, please make the tables like this, and please categorize into several variety of third-party funds. You have demand, saving, and time deposit. Yeah, 1, 3, 5, and 5. And then you have here the balance according to the question. Please just move here, and please calculate the wage. The wage here is 1 minus GWM minus excess reserve and minus floating rate. So you got 0.92, all same. So once you have here, please calculate the last balance, 1 billion here with 0.92. So it means that the financing schemes that could be conducted by Islamic Bank is only 920 million rupiah, not 1 billion. Yeah. And you could implement all the type of deposit type here. And now you calculate the rate of returns through, please put here the nisbah. From the demand deposit, you got information 0.2. Yeah. So once you, before this one you have to calculate the distribution of income. Yeah. Through the C1 is here, 920 over total C here, 5.520, yeah, and times total D, 1.6, yeah. So 920 over 5520 times 1.6. So you got here 266, and you can implement to all financing depositors the ways just now. And please move to the next one. Here is the nisbah from the demand deposit 0.2 as the question before. And please look for also from this 266 how much the income distributed to the customers nasabah. Through 266 times 2.0.2, you got 53 point blah blah blah. Yeah. And from this 53 point blah blah blah, how much the equivalency rate, how much the profit rate, how much the profit loss sharing rate. So the way is F1 here, F1 means 52 point blah 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 over 1 billion, yeah, over 1 billion times 100. So you got 5.33%, yeah, 33%. So from this one, yeah, the rate of returns, if you put the money in the wadi'ah or demand deposit in Islamic banks, would be 5.53%. Yeah, and you can implement to all type of deposit instruments here, saving and others. And for the bank, you can just take the difference. The nisbah is 0.8. Yeah, so the income here is the 0.x times 266. Yeah, you got 213. And from this 213, you can get the equivalency rate for the bank is around 21.333%, whereby this is got from 213, yeah, here over 1 billion times 100. So you got 21.33%. So you can implement to all contracts here until the end. And how much the Mr. Ashar return then in a year? If it has 2.250 millions, So you just take the multiplier from 250 times 5.33%. So you got 30 million rupiah per year. Yeah, per year. So if per month, you can just divide into 12 months. So here, system brothers and others, you can just learn by your own the same until the end. Yeah. Okay, any questions so far, sisters and brothers, before we end? Any questions so far? Okay, yeah, if there is no questions, then I guess it is enough for this meeting. So next week, hopefully, you will be able to be questions at the second examinations. Yeah, and the question and the material will be from the 5th until the 7th meeting. And in terms of the time and also the day, I will consult with your class leader. Yeah, so which the best suitable time for you to have the second examinations. Okay, any questions so far, Sister and brothers, before we end the session, please? Enough? No questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I end to this until these topics. Yeah, if you feel that you have any questions, please don't hesitate to interact with me. And then all the materials has been available in my class. You can just go through since the 5th until 7 meetings. Yeah. Okay, with that, let we end our meeting with reciting Hamdallah together. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thank you very much for your very kind attention, and see you next week, inshallah, on the second examination. I end. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.